Venerable Sir, you have to be, you are not muted. You are still muted, Venerable Sir. Right. No, still muted, Venerable Sir. Right.
Fortunately, the lights came. Earlier, there was no lights, right? So I'm extremely happy to be with you all again, and as a patron of the organization, and also to work with a very, very enthusiastic group, the Servants of the Buddha. And every week we have been having these discussions, which are called now Dhamma chats. And it's a chat because it's not a sermon as such, but we like to understand the Dhamma and try as much as possible to practice the Dhamma. So when it was requested by the president to speak on the subject, that came to my mind, why are we hanging on in Samsara? It's something is very relevant for all of us. Actually, why are we hanging on? Because the whole, when you think of the present situation, things have, in a way, turned upside down. The COVID-19 that was in 2019 and its impact worldwide. I can remember some time back, I was speaking of the new normal at that time. But now I find that the new normal has become the normal. We now do not speak of the new normal as such. Now the face mask, the travel restrictions, although it's now reducing a bit, the family relationships have changed, isolation, the use of the mobile more and more, and online learning, and the Zoom meetings. Now here, we are on a Zoom meeting, but we had some time back, we go to Maitriya hall and had those discussions there, face to face. But now it's remote from my room, and everyone who is listening to this in their own background, and listening to this. So it's really a sort of a change, complete change. And also, but from the point of view of the world as such, the environmental hazards due to greenhouse conditions, it has worsened. I think if I'm correct, I think it was in 2012 that we had the first UN discussion, international forum on this in Paris. And since then, we have had several meetings, and the experts, interestingly, there was an expert committee very recently, and they had predicted quite a very, some very bad period in the future if we don't change our ways. They say that it's always now possible, even now, if we are alert. It's not just meeting, just discussing and resolutions, passing resolution, and going back and living the same type of life without change. So this is another thing. The climate changes, the floods, the tidal waves, and with those sites, the cyclones, the swelling up the oceans, all those things, that means something is imminent if we don't change. And recently, we have also had another issue, the Ukraine war and the Russia. This also has created many problems around the world. Even Sri Lanka, we have had our tourist industry, then many of those things have been affected by the Ukraine war. And we do not know yet what it would be. We are still hoping that there won't be another world war. But the thing is, we don't know. It all depends on the human mind, the human. And when coming back to Sri Lanka, if you say, Sri Lanka is having a very, very bad state of affairs, economic, political, social, and there is bankruptcy. The government had said there's bankrupt, we can't pay our loans. We have been living not according to our earnings, although we speak of Samajivikata in our, and the monks have been mentioning about this from time immemorial in this country as a Buddhist country. But when we try to, as a country, we have lived not according to our earnings. And even because of that, even in our personal life, because of the ATM and not only that, the card, the Visa card and other cards, we always, try to live not according to our means, but actually brighten more than that. So what have we seen now? We see the queues, long queues, and have you ever heard people dying when they are standing on queues? There are several people who have died. And also there is now no gas, it's a big problem. Even very recently, about 2 or 3 days back, the person who brought the Dharnet, Vajiraramaye, was mentioning, I was praying, at least let the gas in the cylinder, let it last to prepare the morning Dharnet. So like that, no gas, then no kerosene, no medicine. In fact, there is a shortage of medicine. The siege on the government asks for a system change, whatever it be. So all those things, there is no need now, I think, to convince people, anyone, on the first noble truth of suffering. And that living in this world is not so satisfactory. I think the living is now not satisfactory. Yes. So that is something that we have to be very conscious of. Suffering. Now, last time we were speaking of the new normal, but now I find that the suffering has become the new normal in the world, and especially in Sri Lanka, the new normal is suffering. Every time when we get up in the morning and then we see the papers and everything has become, but how many think of letting go of clinging to the world with all the suffering we face? This is something that we have lost. We still like to cling to this world. And maybe only a handful are prepared to think further and say, what is all these things? How can we face this situation? How can we let go? What are the things that we have? And then rather than clinging to the world. Why do we wish to continue in samsara with all the suffering and its unsatisfactory nature? We still don't like to live in samsara, continue in samsara. Now, that's why we wish, every year we wish we have the new year. In the new year, we wish others. In the birthday, we wish others happiness and prosperity when a new year dawns. But interestingly, we wish the attainment of Nibbana only when a person dies. This is something, when we think of it, immediately, even in our service of the Buddha group, immediately we hear that a person has died. Oh, there's may he attain Nibbana, may he attain Nibbana. The thing is, the attaining Nibbana is something with death. If I say to a person, may you attain Nibbana, that person may think, this person wants me to die early. So the point is that although we like to attain Nibbana, we find that in our day-to-day life, the way that we have taken the Dhamma in our life, the visions that now even we say that when a person is deceased, along with that we attain Nibbana. We wish if that person be again born with us, according to our relationship, be that person be our father, mother, or spouse, or anything, like that. In one way we say, may you attain Nibbana, but also on the other hand, we also wish that the deceased party be our father, mother, or anything, to a relationship. So the question I wish to raise is, how could we reconcile this duality? How could we reconcile this? Is there a real wish to end suffering that is put an end to the cycle of births and deaths? Is there a real wish? It's not something we have to ask ourselves. It's not that asking another person or the world, anybody, but we have to ask ourselves, isn't it that in our heart of hearts, there is a wish to hang on in samsara, in our heart of hearts? If that be so, is it that we have only a pseudo wish to attain Nibbana? These are questions I like to raise, but that's something that we have to ask from ourselves. So this is something that the duality that we're thinking of, and how could we reconcile that? Now, the Buddha had said that the world that we live in is called the Karma Loka. So these are Karma Loka. And the Karma Loka is a world of sensual pleasures, a world to satisfy our senses, satisfy our eyes, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And there are many beautiful things and many beautiful and pleasant sights to please our eyes. We go very, very far distances. People come to Sri Lanka on tourism. Why is it? Like, you know, we like to enjoy the beaches. We like to do this. We like all that. You know, the thing is, this is a normal thing. You know, I'm not criticizing any of these things, but this is what we normally in our day-to-day life, we do anything to satisfy ourselves. The tourist attractions, and we are prepared to be extravagant to please our senses. And say, when you think of the other senses, that we have the music, the orchestra, operas, melodious voices, you know, how much we enjoy that. We like that. We would like to listen to that. And that's to please our eyes, ears, and the various fragrances and aromas. In person who is going abroad, and if you go to an airport and to a duty-free shop, what's there? You know, the various types of fragrances, the aroma, you know, it's different. And we do mind since people buy that, and that's a present that we take. And I know of some of my friends, when they go out, they buy maybe the whiskeys and other things and go to another place. So these are things that's there. And what I'm saying is I'm not criticizing, but we have to be mindful of this. I'm trying to bring this to your attention to some of our own actions. And then the food and drinks. If you even in Sri Lanka, you know, if you take the Daily Mirror or some of the papers, the lifestyle, the various many things, that the dishes, food and drinks of different kinds, the gourmet dishes, the different countries. You can go to Korean, Japanese, Italian, all types of things. Why do we do that? And also the Sri Lankan curries. So whatever it is, the world is there to satisfy our senses. And what do we like? We have fully carpeted floors, soft couches to sink. And there in Sri Lanka also now, there are spas with nimble hands to relax after a heavy day's work. So these are all there. With all these attractions, one would ask, who will not like to continue to be in this world? So that's how it is. We like those attractions. And that's what the Buddha called bhavatanha. The bhavatanha, the craving for existence, the craving to live in this world with all the suffering. And that's the Bhavatanha. And the Bhavatanha springs from Kamatanha. We like to satisfy or gratify our senses. And in trying to gratify our senses, we like to live in this world. We pray for that. So this is something that we have to think of. There's this unsatiated desire, the inner wish of everyone. That's a chanda, the inner wish, the chanda, to gratify our senses. We like that. We tend to call it a natural tendency because we are born with this trait, and in some, gratifying sensual desires uppermost to the extent of instigating deceit, corruption, fraud. All these come up because, nothing, we have and have it, but no end to it. When you think of the conditions in Sri Lanka, you will think of it. It's not necessary for me to mention, but there is no satisfaction. This is enough for me. But if you have, and there's so much, how can I grab another? How can I grab? But this is not something only in this world. It's all also during the time of the Buddha. This happened. If it was mentioned, there's a sutta where it is mentioned, if a particular person comes and to tell the king, there is another country to grab, is it possible? And all those things, we send the army to grab that. We're not satisfied with what we have. We would like to have more and more and more. Political power and everything, more and more. But these are things, and that's the tanha, the bhava tanha, is bringing from kama tanha. The Buddha accepted this condition as a major human trait hindering progress. And that's the interesting. The Buddha recognized this as an inner trait in all human beings living in Kamaloka. But he realized this as a hindrance. And then he says, all right, if that's the Buddha named this, the innate desire, yearning to fulfill our sensual desires. It's in Pali. We know this word. Is called kama chanda. Kama is sensual pleasures. Chanda is wish. We have this, the inner urge, the asa, the traits for that to satisfy our gratifier senses. And that's why, and the Buddha said, all right, you can have it, but it's an hindrance to get nibbanic bliss. You can enjoy, but it's a hindrance. It's something the Buddha very emphatically mentioned that as the first of the hindrances. But please remember, so the fruits of the path, fruits that we get on the path, when we go on the path, could be enjoyed only by those who consider the inner desires as a hindrance and try to eradicate them. So if you want, we always speak of Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, Rahat, and bliss, Nibbana, and happiness and everything. But if you want that, we have to consider our inner trait, the inner desire that we have to gratify our senses as a hindrance. It's not only for bhikkhus, but the thing is, even during the time of the Buddha and even now, it's possible to be a Sotapan, it's possible to be an Anagami, being a lay person. But the point is, the important thing is that we have to recognize this as a hindrance. If we start gratifying our senses, then that's the end of, that's something that we always believe it should be so. Then I think we will never get the fruits of being a Buddhist or the path. So this is something that we have to remember. And there's a question that is asked by everyone. by the Buddha, what is one? And the reply was, Sabbe Satta Aharattika. What is one? Everyone wants food, nutriments. Without nutriments, it's not possible for us to live. And these days we are speaking of, if you want have the lead a life which is of less sickness, I would say, what is required? You have to have exercise, you have to have some the balanced diet. You're speaking of a balanced diet, a more non-stressful lifestyle, and essential for physical, also essential for physical well-being. So that is for the physical, the kaya. You see of the nama rupa, we speak of the rupa. For the rupa, that is the body, we need certain something, we need food, we need exercise, we need a balanced diet, and a lifestyle, a simple lifestyle. All these things we could. But in the same way, there are nutriments. We have the nutriments for the senses. What I have been telling earlier, the nutriments to the senses. So the six senses get nutriments from the external world. And unless a person has developed the correct mental attitude, the nutriments, the forms, different forms for the eyes, beautiful forms, the eyes, the sounds, the melodious sounds and sounds for the eyes. It could be melodious or it could be ugly or it could be anything, but the forms for the eyes, the sounds for the eyes, the sweet odors for the nose, the pleasant feelings for the body, and thoughts of the mind create that craving to live, or bhavatanha, a cause for dukkha or suffering. So the important thing is that just as we have nutriments, ahara, for our body, the external world gives nutriments for the senses. And each person's world is different. Your world is different from mine. Why? Because the world the external world we experience is through our six senses. And we feed that. We feed that through our sense dose. So and then just as if you eat something bad for your system, you get sick. It's the same way that, let's see, the lights have gone. It's the same way that if we always, without any kind of restraint, we feed our senses, it'll go on and on. So what is required is we have, in a way, to starve the senses. Learn to starve the senses, not always gratify the senses. And it's in that we say we take the 5% and the 8%. And in the Vesak, many of our members of the service of the Buddha would be observing the 8 precepts. The 8 precepts is a training to starve your senses. You say, normally you don't do that. The normal life, you take the 5 precepts. But when you take the 8 precepts, then there is this aspect of restraining. So what happens? Because if by any chance you have all these the things to satisfy your senses and your eagerness to satisfy the senses, if by any chance there is no restraint, then if you do not get what you want, you yearn for something, you want something, but you don't get it, what happens? If you don't get that, you get angry. There is ill will. you feel not happy about it. So the thing is, what could happen when one fails to get that what one desires is the second, is our ill will, our vyapad. It's strange that along with our desire for gratifying the senses, if we don't gratify the senses, what happens is that we are ill will, we are unhappy. So with unhappiness, strange enough, with Kama Chanda, the bedfellow of Kama Chanda, of the desire to gratify the senses, is ill will, aversion or ill will, vyapada. That could aggregate. We have vyapada, the ill will. It could aggravate to krodha, the anger. And then also, or beyond the anger, there's upanaha, that's revengefulness. You can just imagine, we start with ill will, but again, from there, if we perpetuate feelings of hostility, resentment, hatred, and bitterness, that's in life if you don't get what we wish. So this is the result of not getting what one desires. And as you all know, in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha mentions about what dukkha was, and he says, if you do not get what one desires, yampichang nalabhati tampi dukkha. If you do not get what one desires, is suffering. And then say one may even, and if we do not get that, in certain people, if you have no restraint, it may even lead to killing a person. It may lead, sometimes there's so much of ill will towards oneself, one could commit suicide. And also it could be that there are, the anger, without any kind of restraint, there could be even may even kill the other person. It could be the loved one. We see in papers that sometimes you kill the person whom you have loved so closely, you have your most intimate relationship, you kill that person. Your anger comes in. And this is when, in such a state of mind, one starts to question. Even now, we'll see this, all the suffering, waiting in the queue for the basics that we think of. Is there need? Is there something to the rationale for continued existence? We ask ourselves, sometimes we ask ourselves, yes, light, and there could be that it's from my action, there could be a problem. So accordingly, along with bhavatanha, with sensual desires, we have bhavatanha. But when we do not get what we require, we go to the other side. We commit suicide. We think of what is this whole world, and asking ourselves is vibhavatanha. So what I would like to say is that both the tanha, the kama tanha, leads ones to bhavatanha, and also when you do not get the satisfaction, that you don't get that satisfaction from, and you do not get that, you sometimes feel hopeless, committing suicide, thinking that there's no need to continue in samsara, and that's vibhavatanha. So the point is with both bhavatanha and vibhavatanha and kamatanha. These, the Buddha said, is the main reason, the cause for suffering, and it's there within us. It's not outside. And this type of turbid mind, frothing with ill will and anger, hinders any progress. hence it becomes a hindrance. So the second hindrance in our progress along the path is Vyapada. So first we had Kamachanda, gratification. And if without that gratification, then we have the second, the Vyapada, that is the second Nivarana, the hindrance. And hindrance not only in this life, and hindrance also in the next life. So this is something that we have to remember. So with all that, that's with the external world. But then we have other considerations also. Now I have the lights again. So I'm off, coming on and off the lights. Now I have the lights. So we have to bear with this. It's that's equanimity, and we face that without being angry. Nothing. There was light. There was no light. Now there's light again. So, and it's the first. We have to accept that position. The most important thing is to accept the position. That is seeing things in their true nature, accepting situations. So with that, with the type of, with the external world, we have these hindrances of Kamachanda, and we have the other hindrance of Vyapada, the ill will, and also gratification. But then other things in our progress, in our normal progress, whether it's spiritual or whether it's a mundane type of life, is something to do, something more mentally, our mind, how we, and it's our laziness. Sometimes, we are lazy. We have so much to do, we are lazy. It could be that we are physically lazy, and also we are mentally, we don't want to do anything. Yes, there are periods of time we like to just sit and just watch. It may be useful. Sometimes we need rest, because it's said that for any person, at least 7 hours of rest is required. So it could be that after 7 hours of rest, there is the time that you are up and about. So that's how many hours? It's about 17 to 18 hours. And that there, if you are lazy, if you are mentally not alert, if you just allow things to happen, it becomes a hindrance. It causes, the teaching of all Buddhas is one thing that we have to remember. If you know that sutta in the verse in the Dhammapada, Sabba Papa Sakarana, and after that there is another, the third sutta, the verse in that, but the same thing. We say Mattanyutacha Bhattasmi. Mattanyutacha, but you have to know your matra in taking food. Bhattasmi, when you eat, you have to know your limit. It's something, he says, Etam Buddhana Sasana. So all Buddhas mention that. And it's something for bhikkhus, but also the Buddhana Sasana is not only for bhikkhus, for anyone. So one of the reasons for lethargy, after a very, very heavy meal, not knowing one's own limits, what happens? You feel sleepy. You are lethargic. You are sometimes you physically and mentally you are lethargic. You are lazy. Now the thing is, this type of lethargy is also a hindrance for worldly progress. If a person says, "Oh, I have got everything from my parents, I need not use my energy. I just use the sleep and then enjoy my life." And then also, who's there? Tell me these things. What happens? There'll be dissipation. Your wealth will go away, and your worldly progress is not there. What the Buddha said is Uttanavatu. That's what he says. Uttanavatu. The people, every one of us has to be with energy, full of energy. That's what we do. Uttanavato satimato, suchikamasa nisambakari. You know, the thing is, uttanavato, uttana viriyate. It's something that if you want to go on this path, it's extremely necessary that we consider lethargy, laziness as a hindrance. It's not only on going the path, but also in our day-to-day life, we have to consider, that's why we have, in management, we always speak of time management. Time management, it's important. How do you manage your time? How do you spend on this and that so that you get the maximum out of your wake, you know, the life that you have, you are awake. You need sleep, and of that, how do you get the best? You have to manage your time. So that's another aspect. And how much more, if it is so in your lay life, how much more will it be in the Buddhas, or in leading the path, in engagement, you know, because it's very necessary in controlling or not controlling or taming your mind, or in also of relearning. Say relearn. You know, the mind. That's what the meditation is extremely important. Energy is required, or else you'll feel sleepy. And this is in Pali. You know, this, I'm not using the Pali word, but we know it. It's called Thinamitta. The Thinamitta. The Thinamitta is translated often as sloth and torpor. It's the third hindrance, identified by the Buddha as impeding development. The state of lethargy in one's mind is conditioned by oneself. That is one thing you have to remember. The state of lethargy in your mind, in one's mind, is conditioned by oneself. It's not by others. It's conditioned by oneself. So it's, one could say, it's Mara within. You know, the Mara. You know, the death traps. You know, you are hindered. Your development is hindered, and that's why the Buddha said, "All right, you know, there is the Kama Chanta, then the Vyapada, and then coming to you, one's own mind, lethargy, sloth and torpor, your physical and mental, and that really will not, is a hindrance in your development." And along with that, these days especially, how much of mental agitation is there in the normal person, mental agitation. We look at what's happening. To every moment, we like to know what's happening. Has this person resigned? Has the parliament, what has been done? Is there food? Tomorrow, is there a kerosene? How could I get this thing? All that, there's mental agitation. Is agitation, is experience before, it's now the order of the day, the mental agitation. It's something normal. It has become the normal, but it won't be like the new normal. It will change. The important thing is the anicca is there. So it's not for all times, but, and we should know, we should work towards changing the situation. That's different. But the thing is, we are experiencing all these things. So there is we are all having this agitation. Our mind is agitated. And sometimes I know certain people don't read the newspapers, don't want to listen to that, because, you know, we don't want to get our minds agitated. But when thinking of the past, there is both remorse, you know, what did we know? It's happening. Oh, for 75 years, what has we been doing? What has been the policies, the government, how of this thing, remorse, and we analyze the past. It's important. As a history student, I analyze. We know what it is. We see the civilizations coming up and down. You know, it's not the same thing. You can't have continuous. So we see the ups and downs and ups and downs. And we see deterioration. But we are in the next, since the independence, we have reached something in a very, very low level, and we definitely we are agitated, the minds are agitated, and also there is remorse, because at the time when we do, if problems come, there is remorse. Even in one's own personal life, there are so many instances where you have to take decisions. And in taking the decision, if you have taken the wrong decision, or if you have taken the right decision, but not at the right time, what happens? There's remorse. So both agitation and remorse, there are certain things that we face in all our life, in everyday life, every time. We have this. It's not something new. It is not something that is coming from outside. These things we face, whether it's rich or poor, whether the color of the person, what the language, it doesn't matter. Anything, everyone has this remorse, has this worry, and also we agitate. And that Buddha said, yes, that's also a hindrance in your development. If you always have remorse, and if you have also on the other hand, the mind is always agitated, you can't develop. It's an hindrance on your development. It's an hindrance in your path to liberation. So these are what it's called in Pali. All of you have heard that, Uddacha Kukucha. Uddacha Kukucha. It's this Uddacha Kukucha, flurry and worry, takes much of our time in daily life. The reason why the Buddha named this condition a hindrance as an nivarana. And that's again is the most important thing why a virtuous life is important, why sila is important. Because if you break the 5 precepts, if you break, at the time of breaking, it's only when you are to yourself, when you are meditating, when you are to yourself and with you are confronted with your mind. Your mind is a mirage, as a mirror, and you look at yourself. What causes remorse? What causes remorse is if you have done something wrong. If you have broken the 5 precepts, you feel sad, you feel bad about it. And that's a big hindrance in your development. And it goes finer and finer, as because we have these 227, the Vinaya rules, all those things. Some of these small things, if you break, it's only when you come, it's when you are face to face with your own development that it comes and becomes a hindrance. So that's why it's important, recognize your own conditions, your own what you have in your mind or yourself as the hindrances. These hindrances do not come from outside. The karma chant and vyapada, the outside also is important because there's your senses and outward senses. But after that, it's yours, it's within you. It's your lethargy, it's your agitation, it's your sense of worry, remorse of things that you have not done or done. Sometimes, if you have done the wrong thing, then again there is remorse. Then what happens? With all these things, again, it is now, but yet for all we wish to hang on. That's the interesting thing. We wish to hang on. We have many, only a few has changed their ways. We wish to hang on in samsara. And it's a sense of and that's because our mental attitudes. It's samsara. We have, so far we have discussed 4 of these hindrances. The 5th and the last hindrance that the Buddha mentioned that hinders our mental growth is doubt. It's doubt. It's skeptical doubt. You doubt many things. You doubt in regard to the efficacy of the Dhamma. What has happened to this country? Efficacy of the Dhamma, you doubt. The lack of conviction or trust in one's capabilities. That's really the biggest doubt. And that's why, as you all know, in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, if a person wants to go on this path, the first thing that is required is sakko. Be able, be confident. You have to be confident yourself that it is possible for me, it is possible for every one of us to change this condition. If it's not so, as somebody said earlier, the Buddha will not have spent all that time wasting. It's the waste of time. If you have 45 years, he preached the Dhamma, which cannot get results. And why do we say the Sangha, Mahasangha? They are the people who have gone on the path and become arahants. And did anyone say, and some people say, during the time of the Buddha, the people were different. But read the suttas, read the discourses, read how the people's minds were working at that time, the kings and other ones. The same defilements are there, the same type of sense gratifications, all those things were there. But when they heard the Dhamma from the Buddha, and now when we hear the Dhamma, either by reading or by through these discourses, as what the service of the Buddha has been for over 100 years we have been doing, then we have to have the changes required. Please note that the question has nothing, and then it's a very interesting thing where the Buddha, very interesting sutta, and it's all of you I've considered has the capacity. It's just, if you read a sutta called the Sangarava Sutta, Sangarava. In the Sangarava Sutta, there are beautiful similes to explain to a Brahman called Sangarava. He is a practitioner of water purification. Now, when we mean practice of water purification, like Sigalas, sometimes the Brahmins, even now, when they go to bathe to the Ganges, they say they bathe and then they do Surya Namaskar and this thing, and also they believe in that. So here is a person, so he was a person who believed in water. So that's in water purification. And he asked, very interesting, because, he asked the Buddha a very simple question. Master Gautama, what is the cause, the reason why sometimes even those hymns that have been recited for a long period do not recur to the mind, let alone those that have not been recited? So as you know, the Brahmins, they recite hymns every day when they are reciting. Even now, when if you go to a Hindu temple, they chant so many hymns. And then this Sangarava came and told, why is it, sir, that I forget these things? I forget these things. And the important thing is that he is a person who is has long connections with water, the purification with water. And then the beautiful similes which I like to mention, the simile of the water. And then that simile he says, all right, if you want to see your mirror in the bowl of water, it should be clear. But if you mix different colors, the yellow color, the blue color, the crimson dyes, and the lacquer, what did you see? Would you be able to see your mirror, your image, your face? No, sir. And he compared this, mixed in with black, turmeric, blue, and crimson dye, compared to mind sullied with sensual desires. So when you ask the simple question, but the Buddha gave a very interesting answer. He say, all right, why is it if your mind is full of, gratifying your senses and obsessed with any of these things, but then you can't remember. It so happens even in your case, if sometimes you don't remember many things. With age also, you don't remember many things, but that comes with age. But also without aging, you have, because your mind is not what you call calm. The mind is now, sensual desires are there, your desires are there. With your desires, it's compared to a bowl of water with different colors added, and you can't see. Then also if you keep the bowl of water on fire, say gas cooker, and see what happens. Then you see the boiling water, the boiling, and the bubbling, the boiling water. And the Buddha compared that to a mind sullied with vyapara. You think of yourself. So people say, when you are angry, when you get angry, how does your mind work? It's bubbling. Is that bubbling, that, frothing? And that compared. So we have this vyapara. Then also this bowl of water, the bowl of water could be covered with different algae. You see, I can remember when I was in Indonesia, all the whales are inside, and when you see the whale, it's all algae, brown algae. And then if you want to see, you have to clear that algae. It's like that the Buddha compared that to lethargy. If you're lazy, it's just things will be there. And the Buddha compared that to a person with lethargy, that is with sloth and tina midda. And also if you see the river, with the wind, the blowing of the wind, what happens? With the blowing of the wind, there's ripples, the swirl in the churn, the small wavelets and everything, the wind. You can see it in a big, say, Parakram Bahu, Parakram Samudra is all just like ocean. The thing is, when it's like that too, when there is the wind, the rippling, even after rain or something, compared to mind sullied with the Uttachika. And also, you say, an unsettled, muddy, the all muddy, and keep it in a dark place. And that's Vichkicha, Avijja. We have Avijja. So the point is, the greatness of the Buddha as a teacher, he uses the simile of the bowl and different conditions of the bowl. One, adding different colors. When you different colors, you can't see it says Kama Chanda. If your mind is full of frothing with anger, it's like the boiling water, the water and the boiling, you can't see your face. If it's covered with moss, you are lazy. If anything, again, you can't see yourself. Then if it's again agitated, like the water being agitated or being by ripples, by the wind rippling of the mind, and then again you can't. And also if you take the water heater that churn full of mud and keep in a dark place, can you see yourself? So no. And that's, you may now be realizing that the so-called hindrances are not coming from outside. So we know these hindrances, we study these hindrances, we say these are the hindrances the Buddha explained. And in that what he told the Buddha, that in the Sangarava Sutta, he explained to Sangarava, what the Sangarava asked is, how is it I forget these hymns? And the Buddha gave a very deep meaning. It's only not only you, any person, whether he be a monk or a layman, if your mind is agitated, if your mind is full of, kamachanda, vyapada, uddacha kukucha, and then the other, the thina midda and vichikicha, you can't develop. So these hindrances are there. The important thing is, these hindrances, you have to recognize yourself as hindrances. It's not something outside, it's something that you have to recognize yourself. These are conditions that arise within you with your sense bases. Ajattikayatan, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind meet their respective sense objects, vajiraramaye, visible forms, sounds, smells, tastes, feelings, and mind. So finally, just to tell you, the Buddha and all the Arahats, they lived in this world. By becoming Arahant, or the 45 years of Buddha's life after gaining enlightenment, it was not a different world. It was this world, the Kamaloka, the world that we are living in. But how is it that the Buddha was able, the Arahants were able to live that peaceful life? It's because through that development, they were able to see the true nature of things. They accepted these as hindrances, and they went on a path. They developed samadhi to get all these, the nivaranas, the hindrances that we spoke of, to control them, to check them, and so that you can at least see for yourself. And with that samadhi, chitta, you go again to vipassana, and you see what this whole thing is. And you see, and when you realize the impermanence of things, the anicca, the unsatisfactoriness of things, the dukkha, and there's no self, nothing substantial, anatta. When you see that, when you realize that, there's no attachment, there's no I, there's no mine. And without that I, my, and mine, there's nothing. The external, the senses are there. You see it, it's only the seeing. You hear it, you also only hear it. You don't get attached to that. You don't want to get attached to that. You don't see that, because everything you see as anicca, dukkha, and anatta. You see forms, you see the sounds, what you taste, what your old feelings, your mental formations, everything is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So when you see that as anicca, dukkha, and anatta, and that becomes your base, you live a happy life. And that's what the Buddha wanted. It's not something, Nibbana is not something that you can get in the next life. Nibbana is something that you can achieve, you can attain, you have to attain in this
Thank you, Venerable Sir. Much merit for that very detailed and very clearly expressed